Hey, good evening. This is David with Nashville Severe Weather. I wanted to run through the heat and the storm chances tomorrow evening before everybody goes to bed because there's quite a bit of uncertainty about the storms, but the heat is looking like it's going to be pretty rough. And I wanted to talk about what the different models think is going to be happening around 6 o'clock tomorrow. Here's the HRRR model. It's got a pretty nasty line of storms that comes trucking through. This is what the model thinks the radar will look like at 6 p.m. tomorrow. And if we run it back a few hours here, has these storms coming through the middle of PM rush hour. These should be pretty strong with very heavy rain, some lightning, and maybe even some strong winds. But not all the models agree. If you look at the NAM3 model, the NAM 3 kilometer resolution model, here it is at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, and you can see that these storms are actually forming between here and Chattanooga and running away. So if you run this one back a few hours, you can see that these storms actually develop near Murfreesboro and then run towards Chattanooga. Which means that would be a complete swing and a miss for us. So this model thinks we wouldn't see anything at all. That's not the forecast, that's just one of the models showing one of the possibilities. Then switch forward to the Euro model. This isn't a simulated radar, but it shows how much rain is expected to be falling in the previous hour in 1 hour increments, and this is again at 6 p.m. tomorrow. This has a little bit of an earlier arrival. If you run this back a few hours, you see those greens and those darker greens indicating heavier rain and most likely thunderstorms running in around late afternoon into the early evening hours of Tuesday night. And then for fun, the Storm Prediction Center's HRF ensemble model here at, let's see, running it up, and of course they just updated it. This had most of the rain coming in the morning, and then as we go through like a mid to late afternoon into the evening with the heaviest rain going over here. And of course I screwed up loading it, but that's what that means. For tomorrow, there's a slight risk of severe weather. Starting from Clarksville going all the way to Jackson, of course including Nashville and Williamson counties, which is the only two counties we cover. And the probability of a severe weather event was about 15% for those line of storms, assuming that they do form and come in around early evening on Tuesday night. The National Weather Service grids, and these are kind of hard to see, but the idea is the National Weather Service office in Nashville thinks that the most likely time for us to receive the storms would be around 7 p.m. tomorrow, with a chance that they might come earlier, starting maybe as early as 1 o'clock, and then maybe lasting as long as, or not lasting as long, but maybe occurring late, coming in around midnight. But again, the most likely time would be here in this 7 p.m. hour. The Weather Service office in Nashville is reminding you there is a heat advisory in effect on Tuesday. The heat advisory begins for this entire area in this, what is this, coral shaped? Whatever this color is. It would begin at 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Tuesday. The hotter conditions are more likely to be near the Tennessee River over here by Waverly and Waynesboro. For us, though, we should top out around 107 degrees for the heat index. And as you see, the range will be between 105 and 108. A heat advisory is issued when the heat index, which is a combination of the dew point and the temperature in the shade, is expected to be 105 degrees or more, meaning it feels that hot to the skin. But again, we're going to have excessive humidity tomorrow. It's going to be very difficult for especially children to get out and run around tomorrow at these temperatures, and we should reach these thresholds around mid to late afternoon. And then depending on the timing of those storms, maybe this heat advisory may be canceled early if these storms come in around 6-7 p.m., which is probably the most likely scenario. But we wanted to show you all of the data so you can understand that there's not a certainty about the ETA, and so please stay connected throughout the day tomorrow as the ETA change. As far as the severe storm hazards, the Weather Service is giving a ETA between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. For the Nashville area, which, and by the way, what you're hearing is my daughter printing out a school assignment. Sorry about that. But the ETA here is between 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. for the Nashville area into Williamson County. A little bit sooner for those up in Clarksville to our northwest. And the hazards would be tornado. There are no tornadoes expected. It's not a tornado day, but the winds could be very strong. There's the dynamics for a severe wind event are pretty good. They're not off the charts, but a 60-mile-an-hour wind gust is possible. We might see some small hail in there. And then the flooding potential, flash flooding potential is high. We were reading some of the forecast soundings earlier, which indicate that the atmosphere is going to be super saturated, like even well beyond what's normal for this really humid time of year. So if you get caught in any of those downpours, that'll be an issue. One of the other things to consider is if this line does materialize the way the HRRR model says it will, which is this model here, these things are going to be tossing a whole lot of lightning. So if you have any questions, hit us up on Twitter. We will be covering this event tomorrow. You'll have a good night. Bye-bye.